This segment has been sponsored by Pro Bikes Caribe. Pro Bikes Caribe, get yours today.
I'm Claudia Clarke, author of Circle Square, a short story collection exploring the lives of Barbadians dealing with everyday problems, from daddy issues, living above their means, and dating men with questionable food preferences. Circle Square is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and from the author, suitable for ages 11 and up.
Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors and creatives about themselves and about their literary works. Today we have with us Claudia Clarke, author of Circle Square. Claudia, welcome to Tropical Literature Creatives.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I'm happy to be here.
Claudia, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am an attorney by profession. I started writing as a hobby probably a few years ago. So Circle Square is my first published work, but I am working on other things, which I hope to have published shortly, fingers crossed.
Say that you just started writing, but I mean, already a little portion of your book, and according to your book, you started writing way before that. It's just published.
Well, at school, yeah. So yeah, it's been a while. I should say this is the first thing I've worked on since school, which was a while ago. So yeah.
Before I even go even further, which tropical island do you hail from?
Barbados.
Ah, nice. Practically our neighbors in Trinidad and Tobago here.
Yes, I'm very familiar with Trinidad because that's where I went to law school.
Ah, interesting. So it seems that you have ties to a number of the islands.
Yes, I do.
I mean, anything you like about Trinidad in particular?
It's just so alive. It's just such a vibe. The people, so much energy. Of course, they just move differently. They talk differently. There's a variety of food. I really like Trinidad. I haven't been back for a while, but I have some good friends there, so I hope to visit soon. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that this interview reaches them so they can have an idea as to how great you're doing and actually go out and buy your book as well.
That's so.
I mean, you indicated that you're a full-time attorney and that you're a part-time writer. In terms of writing, why choose to go the way of actually going the way of doing like a book itself?
I don't know. I keep saying that the book actually, the collection of short stories actually wrote themselves. I didn't, because you'd hear authors say that a voice just pops into their head, or you're just doing something and these people just start to talk to you. It's like, am I going crazy or is it a story? Luckily, it's a story. So yeah, these voices jumped into my head. A few years ago, I would work on them sporadically. So write a couple of chapters here and there, forget about it for say like 6 months, then oh yeah, they're back again and they're not letting me rest. So write some more. So over a period of time, I wrote the collection.
Okay, and it has been an interesting collection because I went through a couple of them, and I admit I really like them.
Thank you.
How come you choose to just go the way of just doing like several, not to want to spoil the book, so persons who are interested in going out to buy them, how come you chose the way of choosing to do several short stories as opposed to just one entire book on one of these stories that you did?
Right, because I had several voices wanting to tell their stories, and it really started. I'm driving through my neighborhood. I would look at houses and wonder what the lives of the people in these houses are like. If I were to peel back, say, the roof of the house and be able to look now, what would the people in there? What type of lives would they be living? If I were to follow them for a day, what would I find out about them? Just curiosity. And from listening to people, observing fellow pages, listening to how they talk, watching or reading their comments on social media, really begin to get curious. And there's several types of people typically in a neighborhood. So that's why I did several stories.
Is Circle Square a real place, or is that fictitious area that you'd have?
It's a fictitious area, but there would be places like Circle Square that is more of a gated community, more middle class, upper middle class area. But in Barbados, those would be skirted by very normal neighborhoods because it's a small country. We don't have that much land. So it is fictitious, but it could really be any place with real people.
Okay. I mean, personally, in addition to the other item I mentioned before, one of the things I like about your writing is that it's sometimes when it is that you go through a book, we like to have that conclusion at the end, boy meets girl, boy likes girl, boy gets married to girl, and both live happily ever after. But in real life, and as is another case with the stories in your book, it doesn't end like, like everything tied up in a nice little bow. It just gets the impression there's more to it, that life goes on. So as much as a character encounters a situation, that decisions are made, that they have feelings and experiences, it happens, and then there's more to happen, but later on. And that's the impression I get, and that's one of my takeaways from the book that I like. That it's just like life. There isn't a nice and tidy ending. That things move on.
Yeah, that is exactly it. And I'm glad you picked up on that. It's really a slice of life. So a moment or several moments in the lives of the persons, the characters in Circle Square. So nothing is tied up neatly with a bow. And that happens, it seems a little too perfect. So this is reflective of life. This is where we are at this point in time of the relationship, or at this point in time in my life story, something else could happen after this. But this is basically a slice of life.
Your book, is it a self-published work, or did you go through a traditional publishing company to get your work published?
It's neither.
Neither.
Um,
Yeah, do tell, do
it's
tell.
it's through a publishing company.
Mhm.
It's through a publishing company, Bobo Creative, a small publishing company in Canada. But that is run by my cousin Steve Bino, who had read Circle Square and encouraged me to keep writing it. And he said, "Oh, when you finish this, would you be interested in publishing it with Bobo Creative?" And I said, "Sure." I was told after Circle Square placed second in the Frank Collymore Literary Endowment that I could try to go the traditional route because there's more interest in Caribbean literature, etc. But that is a lengthy process. You have to go through trying to find an agent, trying to find a publisher that likes your work, etc. And I was getting so many queries about the book after it came second, and people, is it available? Can I read it? So I really just wanted to get it out there as quickly as possible. Let me put it that way.
Okay. And then fair enough, fair enough. And I mean, I for one was not disappointed. Like I said,
Thank
I
you.
went through it and I continue to go through it. I haven't finished it, but it isn't a very long read.
No, no. Mm-mm.
Seen that you just give some details about your publishing experience, can you tell us a bit more about just one more thing? In terms of the book, how has been the reception been so far?
The reception has been very good. I have gotten an excellent response, some really nice reviews on Amazon. And as you know, those are reviews are gold for authors. So I'm always thankful when people take the time to write reviews or give feedback. People see themselves in the characters in Circle Square. You will see yourself, you'll see your neighbor, you'll see somebody you know or somebody you have passed in the street at some point in time. And I have a couple of Trinidadians who have read it. They would have come to UWI at some point in time. So they say it's a very Caribbean, but they didn't have an issue with it being set in Barbados and being very Barbadian. It still resonated with them. So I was happy to hear that. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, in terms of you having a background as an attorney, did that help you in putting together the book or navigating any challenges where having it published was concerned?
I think in the writing, because you will find there are several writers who are putting out books right now who are attorneys. Like I mentioned, Sharma Taylor, Sherry Jones, who have been quite successful. One Armed Sister Sweeps Her House, and Sharma's Tale, What a Mother's Love Don't Tell You. So they have been very successful. And I think it's because a lot of attorneys tend to study literature, maybe the arts at advanced level at school. So having that background, it lends itself to writing. We obviously read a lot. So I relied on that in my writing. In terms of the legal aspect of publishing, etc., of course, it's always good to have that foreknowledge while you look out for this. You could analyze contracts, things like that. But I didn't go the traditional route, so I didn't encounter as much of that as other people might have. In terms of working with agents, agency contracts, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, before you went to get the book published, did you do research into the different options that you had, like self-publishing and that sort of thing?
Self-publishing, yes. And I did work with Passionate Words Editing in Barbados. I didn't have the book edited per se. It's published in the form in which it was submitted to the competition, but I had to read and pick up any typos, make any type of editing in that vein, but not structural or anything of that nature. Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
and
wouldn't recommend it though. I would recommend having an editor and going through all of that before you publish.
no, but how come? I mean, I'm hoping that at some point in time there may be other persons who may be interested in writing their book and maybe listening to some of these interviews. And from your
Mhm.
experience, what would you like to share with them
In terms of writing, publishing, what?
in terms of the entire process? Well, let me just give some meaning to that question. And
Mhm.
in an interview I did recently, one of the authors, they were surprised because they didn't know that writing a book would entail so much activities. In addition to
Mhm.
writing, they had to work with the editor, and after getting the book published, they had to do some promotion, and you also had to do marketing. Some of them
Mhm.
actually take on like speaking engagements. Some of them actually find themselves organizing workshops. So there are a slew of activities that authors find themselves in, not just
Mhm.
not just, selling the book and publishing the book and that being the end of the story. They find themselves, having different hats, having to engage in other activities outside of just simply writing the book. Now, after describing all of that and you going through
Mhm.
the process, did you have to encounter anything resembling that?
Yes, I did. I would say writing was the easy part, and obviously, it's not the easy part. Um, it's time consuming. If you're working a full time job, then you have to really juggle your time. So, when I needed to speed along the process because I felt it was dragging on, as I said, it was very sporadic. I would use my vacation time to basically sit down and try to get ahead of the writing. Writing, you're finished, you think, okay, let me publish the book. You go through that process and then you have to reread, try to catch typos, and something still always gets through. And at that point in time, you're like, oh my gosh, how many times have I read, have I read this work? I'm tired of reading this now. Then you put it out there. Of course, there's will somebody like it? What kind of reception am I going to get? But that's still not the end because there are millions of books published. So your book, like, who are you? Nobody knows you. If you're a first time author, you still now have to market yourself. And in today's world with social media, that's its own full-time job. So if you have a full-time job, that is another job you're taking on. Some people will employ people to help with marketing. That's expensive. And again, you can't just put your book, it's like your baby. You can't put it in the hands of anybody to run with it full time. So you still have to do a lot of the work. And I think that was a real learning experience for me because I wanted to write a book, but having put it out there, I realized there's so much more. Unless you just want to sell 2 copies to your friends and family who knew you put out the book, you have to make people aware of the book. And I'm still learning how to do that.
No, you had mentioned something there in everything. You had mentioned that it's sort of like a baby. And believe it or not, it's
Yes.
something that I keep on coming
Mm.
across with authors are concerned where they say, their book is their baby. Not
Mm.
just because it requires a lot of work and a lot of effort, because the birthing process, it could be quite,
Mm.
it could be an experience. So when
Mm.
they say that, I think I have never had children and I don't think I'm capable of bearing children, but I can understand where they're
Mm.
from, where the pain and
Yeah.
bringing it to full term comes into play with that metaphor.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're literally giving birth to something. Yeah.
Sina, the book is made up of several short stories. Is there anyone that stands out to you, the writer? Anyone which, was more fun to write than the others, or anyone which, left a mark on your person in it?
Yeah. I would say Mrs. because that's a very Barbadian story. It's written in Barbadian dialect. So the spelling, everything, there's a lot of non-standard English spelling and writing there. It was fun to write because Mrs. has a very distinctive voice, and her voice just came to me and she kept telling stories. I did have a little reservation, I admit, about Mrs. And when I submitted it in the competition, because I was like, how will people react to Mrs. and all the non-standard English, etc. But she's the most popular character in the collection. People just love Mrs. Quote Mrs. So she's very special in my heart. I also like Stacy, the individual who she's higher up and better off, but she really has money problems that you would not think about looking at her from the outside. And I like Elwood A.B. Jones, who is the last person who's featured in the last story in the collection. He is the president of the Homeowners Association, the Circle Square Homeowners Association, and he's the most annoying person on earth, probably. And his story is a very interesting one. Somebody described him as an idiot, but he's endearing, although annoying.
As it's interesting that you mentioned that that particular one of these stories was written in dialect, in dialect particular. Seeing that you'd have had to explore different options to promote your book, etc. Have you explored the option of maybe audiobooks or a podcast?
Yes, I have actually, and people have asked me about an audiobook, and I definitely would like to do one. Yeah.
Because I mean, one of the things that persons who are interested in reading who might not be able to have sight and
yes, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and that is a really interesting and innovative undertaking to be able to cater to that particular group of persons to get your work out there.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on your work being featured in schools, in secondary schools in particular, to help persons with their reading and their comprehension skills?
I would love that. And there are a couple of secondary school English teachers who have told me, well, this would actually be great for students to read because the characters are very relatable. They're set in modern day Barbados, like with Mrs. The languages, the vernacular that people would use and their students would instantly identify with. And there's even been an English teacher who, a friend of mine, her son had the book in class, and the teacher looked at it and recommended that the class go and buy the book. So yeah, I would be happy with that.
Well, let's say a scenario. Let's say, for example, you had to teach a class or maybe even host a workshop, and persons wanted to know what skills it would be best for them to have if they were to pursue being an author. What would you recommend for a person outside of just basic, reading and comprehension skills, having gone through the process of publishing the book that you would have done recently?
Patience, relying on having the strength to rely on your authentic voice. In the beginning, the first thing you think about sometimes is writing like somebody you admire. And there's nothing wrong with that, but through the course of revisions, at the end of the day, it must be your voice, because that is what will set you apart. So yeah, I'm very strong on authenticity of voice. So patience, because it's a long process. You mentioned reading, but they need to read widely, read a variety of things, Caribbean literature from outside. What are the trends? What are people interested in? Take classes. Think about what is your reader promise? What are you promising the reader? How do you deliver on it as you develop your book and your themes, etc. I think those are some of the things I would tell people who want to write.
I mean, having written Circle Square, should we expect a sequel or other writings from you in the near future?
People have asked about a sequel to Circle Square, like several people have asked. So yeah, I didn't intend to write a sequel because as we discussed, it was more like a slice of life. And here's where we leave those people. But when I finished, I was like, okay, well, I could actually see this person's story going in this direction, and there's more that you could say about them. I'd always intended to do follow up to Mrs. because I don't want to give any spoilers, but at the end of the book, Ms. is on a journey. So I think people are really invested in her and they want to know, okay, what happens to her on this journey? So I had to visit a standalone on Mrs. But I'm currently working on 2 relationship romance novels. So that's what has my immediate attention.
Okay. I mean, any particular reason you decided to explore a different genre, or is it just something that you always had intentions to do and it's just the way that, the publishing just worked out?
I actually was working on one of those before I even started to write Circle Square. Well, working in terms of the idea being in my head and jotting down some things. I grew up reading romance and relationship books like most girls with teenagers, reading Sweet Valley High, other things. And I like the genre, it's relaxing. Some people knock it, some serious writers and readers say, oh, I would never read this, I would never write that. But everything in life is a relationship. A romance is something that most people aspire to. For me, it's very I need to see our Caribbean books out there. And I think we consume a lot of other people's culture. And I think it's time for the world to consume our books. Relationship and romance books, those are the best sellers. That's the highest selling category, I believe. So it's very important for me to tell stories of brown and Black people falling in love and dealing with relationship issues just like anybody else. If that makes sense.
No, it does, it does. And I like what you said about how persons knock the books a bit.
They do.
I don't. When I was younger, it was really, and I tell persons this, I was a very avid comic book reader. And comic books actually started me off reading because at first, I was a very visual person. I'm a young guy, let's say 5, 6 years old. I'm not too concerned with letters,
Right.
with pictures and that kind of thing. But after time, watching the pictures, the letters were there, and I started to follow the letters, and then that gave birth to, my reading process. So sometimes I don't really think that it matters so much what you read, but that persons are reading to begin with. And then
Exactly.
and after that, you can branch into other things that you like because based on your age, like you identified, romance books, they're interesting because they give insight into relationships and seeing other persons in relationships. It gives persons, a better idea and understanding as to how to relate to others. So that's just my point of view. So I mean, I'm looking forward to your romance books. I'll probably give it a read, and to learn
Thank
how
you.
and learn how to relate to people because there are lessons in relating to people in your romance books as well.
Of course, yeah.
Of course. So outside of your upcoming novels, what are your plans? Where the plans for Claudia in the near future in 2024 as we're just so close to it?
Right. Well, I am currently doing a course on writing romance and commercial fiction.
Ah, I see what you did there.
Yeah, it's an online course with an English school. And it was good to get good feedback on my work from, I'm the only person from the Caribbean, from other people. And they were like, yeah, we would love to read romances set in the Caribbean. So my intention is to work on bringing those to light, at least the first one. And take some more courses. I would just love to be taking all the courses in the world, but everything costs money. But it's important to continue to update yourself on the trends in writing, get formal training, which I don't have. So those are the things I would be concentrating on in 2024. Immediately, my book launch is next Sunday, so I'll be spending the rest of the week, finalizing the plans for that.
Tell us a bit about the process because again, I mean, if there are authors out, again, they're thinking that when they write the book, that's the end of it. Book launch is part of the process.
Yeah, so the book launch is part of the marketing of your book. I've kind of done things the other way around. My book came out in February, I believe, but I'm now having my formal launch. So that's really announcing to the public, hey, the book is here, it's available. So it's advertised on my IG, so people will be in attendance, they will purchase the book and sign the book. I would sign the book. This is if they don't already have a copy of the book. There's a lot of planning, of course, because you want to have a successful event. So you have to plan about numbers, you have to plan how do you promote it, you have to plan what type of event you're having. There are various ways you could do a book launch, but most of them, the author will be interviewed or have a chat about the book and about their work, their inspiration, etc. You might have questions and answers from the audience as well. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Well, for bigger writers, it'll be more fancy. And some people in COVID, I've attended quite a few online launches during COVID when people can actually be physically there.
When your book does launch, where can persons get copies?
It's available on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble. If you're in Barbados, it's also available from me. It should be in a couple of bookstores shortly. So probably, in the next 2 weeks. And I would make that announcement on IG when it's actually available.
I remember, well, I started reading your book on Kindle, and it was really great.
Right.
I would traditionally like to flip pages, etc. But because
Me
I'm
too.
Yeah, we could talk about this, the flipping of the pages and all that kind of stuff, but
Satisfying, yeah.
but unfortunately, my schedule, I'm on the move a lot, so I can't get to flip. So I get to go through it on my phone. And I think with the advent of like ebooks, etc., it's better for me because as much I have to trade the convenience of the flipping of pages with being able to access, the books on my phone and being able to go through it and get the gratification of that.
Right.
AI is becoming a thing, not just, with pictures, etc. I went to a conference and a person identified that they've went through a couple of novels, that have been generated using artificial intelligence. What are your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, it is very interesting. It's something I've been thinking about and researching recently. So you can actually have AI do so many things with your novel, and opinions are very divided. Is it something that authors should do, or are authors at risk of being eliminated because AI cannot write books? You can say, write a book in the style of the S&I Paul or Camel Brackwood, and AI will find a way to do that, just like how people have made songs like in the style of Drake or Rihanna or whoever using AI. So that's a very scary thing. And I know there are rules in universities now with the use of AI to write research papers, etc. So even to enter competitions, would we know if an author has used AI to write things in the style of or just to assist them? Maybe for research, it could be useful, but in terms of actually doing the writing, I would have an issue with that. But I don't think you could ever replace like authors because it's your voice, it's human. That's where I am with it at this point in time. But it's very, very interesting and constantly evolving. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on that.
Yeah. No, interesting point of view. Well, we're wrapping up the interview, but before we do so, do you have any words for the listeners right now, for the persons who are interested in reading your book, for the persons who want to attend the book launch, for persons who might want to get into writing based on what it is that you would have said today?
People who want to get into writing, I encourage it 100%, 1,000%. We need as many Caribbean writers getting their work out there. I find a lot of people write and a lot of people write well, but when you go to search for the book, they haven't published them, which is one of the reasons I really push to do publication. And I would have done self-publication if I had to, because I think it's important to not only write, but to get it out there so people can see it. What was the other thing you asked me about the book launch? As I said, the information is on my IG page, so people can contact me if they want to attend, and quite a few people have indicated that they will attend at this point in time. Was the third question? I'm missing one. About the book. Right. It's a collection of 10 short stories. As I said, it is very relatable. There's humor in there, there's seriousness in there. There's something for everybody. So people dealing with money issues, father-son, father-daughter issues, relationship issues. And then there's Mrs. who doesn't want to date men with questionable food preferences anymore because that always leads to problems. And you can tell a lot about people, about the things that they like. So from certain things that people eat, maybe there's not somebody I should engage with because this is not going to end well. I think it's a fun read, it's entertaining, and you'd also learn a lot about yourself and your fellow Barbadians or fellow West Indians.
Okay. All right. Well, I am learning a lot about my Barbadian brethren as I go through it.
Great.
All right. Well, that being said, Claudia, thank you very much for making yourself available for the interview.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for extending the invitation.
Okay, anytime. And do have a great day.
All right, you as well. Thanks.
You've been listening to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators. If you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.